What's up guys, Helen here. Now, I don't know about some of you Luddites, but I actually revel in the convenience of modern technology. Still, enjoying these addictive pleasures does mean you're bowing down at the altar of big tech, and really, one company in particular. Google, which, along with its parent company, Alphabet, has infiltrated just about every aspect of our lives. We use Google Chrome to browse the internet, Android to power our phones, Nest to keep our homes cool, Fitbit to track our literal steps, YouTube to watch our favorite content, and the list just keeps going. And surprise, surprise, being beholden to a corporate overlord isn't without its downfalls. I mean, this is the company that collects a truly omniscient amount of information about you. In my case, 1.97 gigabytes. Which begs the very simple question. Is Google evil? To answer that, we're going to have to understand the changing role data plays in our lives, and the dubious ways Google has grown to monetize them. So join us for this Wisecrack Edition on how Google got evil. In order to assess just how sinister Google might be, we first need to understand how search engines work. Cast your minds back to the year 1996, a simpler time when Pokemon numbered only 151. Also a time when search engines really sucked. Back then, search engines would rank pages based on how many times a search phrase appeared, which is kind of dumb. After all, if your friend's choking on a bagel bite, you don't want the first website you click on to be the phrase Heimlich maneuver written 1,000 times. Enter the Stanford wonderkins of 90s tech, Larry Page and Sergey Brin. They radically envisioned the internet as a literal web, with different web pages connected via links. See, Larry Sergey, i.e. the benefactor of the internet, wagered that the more referrals any one page has, the more important that page must be. Like how on a map, the more roads that lead to a city, the more important that city probably is. So Larry Sergey set out to literally map the internet via algorithm, and the two were able to create a system in which more popular and relevant websites rose to the top of the search results. It was a massively ambitious undertaking that would fundamentally change the internet forever. By 1998, what started as a doctorate thesis matured into a massively successful company, Google. After 1 year, Google was already handling 3.5 million searches a day. By 2000, that number had grown to 18 million. But while Google was undoubtedly the best search engine around, the company still hadn't monetized. That's because monetizing created an ethical quandary. There was massive concern, for example, that Google might let companies artificially buy their way to a higher search ranking. But Larry Sergey decided this would be manipulative and harmful to the consumer, so they came up with two big breakthroughs. The first breakthrough was AdWords. You know, that sponsored content at the top of your Google search results that says ad. This allowed Google to rake in money from companies trying to get their products seen without creating a perverse pay-to-play system. The second breakthrough was the company's motto, "Don't be evil." This would act as Google's moral compass in the company's early years, encouraging them to forego short-term gains in order to be good for the world. They've since dropped the tagline, which, bold move. And for a while, Google did indeed seem to be the good guys. But as Google embarked on its advertising venture, it soon realized it could create tailor-made ads to suit each customer. This was a real game changer for an advertising industry that previously could only try to target consumers via vague demographics. That's because Google had a secret weapon, all the data from your previous searches. Thus, it knew a lot about you. While this data was once only used to refine search results, Google quickly realized that it offered key insights, which could be used to better serve us ads. According to Harvard psychologist Shoshana Zuboff, the collecting and monetizing of personal data marked a big inflection point, not just for Google, but for society as a whole. See, Google had pioneered what Zuboff dubs surveillance capitalism, i.e., a new economic order that claims human experience as free raw material for hidden commercial practices of extraction, prediction, and sales. In other words, we, as an amalgamation of our data, have become the product, which, depending on your perspective, is probably explicitly evil, a little bit icky, or somewhere in between. Especially if you, like me, keep getting served personalized ads for bagel bites on every single website. And once Google saw how profitable creeping could be, they really doubled down on the business model. In 2007, it acquired the company DoubleClick, which had a simple MO, serving up personalized banner ads on websites all over the internet. DoubleClick essentially created the current advertising hellscape that we live in. Now, Google didn't just know everything that you were searching for. Via DoubleClick, it also knew which websites you were visiting, which articles you were reading, movies you were watching, clothes you were shopping. In 2010, then Google CEO Eric Schmidt famously declared, "We know where you are, we know where you've been, we can more or less know what you're thinking about." Which doesn't sound not evil, but it's really not an exaggeration. Almost every product the company has is dedicated to collecting your data, from Gmail scanning your inbox, to Fitbit tracking your sleep patterns, to Google Maps tracking your last trip to the liquor store. Hey, it's 5 o'clock somewhere. All said and done, it's thought that Google has the capacity to store at least 15 exabytes of data, or 15 billion gigabytes, and a sizable portion of that is dedicated to storing our personal data. Now, some of you may be asking, what's really the harm in being served personalized ads? Well, when you look more closely, there's a lot of potential problems. For one, Google has used its data collecting to help companies partake in exploitative pricing. Specifically, that means setting whatever price points they choose for each individual customer based on their data. And personalization can have particularly harmful effects on people in dire economic straits. For years, Google used its data collection to help payday loan lenders advertise to vulnerable potential borrowers. Google's even been caught giving data to the police based on keyword searches. That makes me shiver when I recall all the times I've Googled where does the creator of Bagel Bites live and best ways to avenge your friend. But even when it's just using data to decide what information to feed you online, the results can be low-key disastrous. For example, you might think a fringe political cause is a lot more sensible than it really is, simply because you're served a continual stream of ads and YouTube videos on the topic. In fact, researchers believe that algorithms played a key role in radicalizing people by serving them progressively more extreme content. And it's this very mechanism which has given oxygen to so many of the most absurd and stupid conspiracy theories of recent years, many of which thrived on Google's own YouTube. And how did that turn out?
In reality, you are actually in a giant planetarium / terrarium / soundstage.
And sure, even if you're completely on team personalized content, that doesn't really clear Google of all evil-related charges. The fundamental problem remains. When a company is sitting on so much of your personal information, there is ample opportunity for abuse. In countries where Google operates, it's forced to play ball with local authorities. In rare instances, Google has even been forced to turn over user account information to less than stellar governments, like Saudi Arabia. And while plans have since been shuttered, Google was even developing a special search engine to be compliant with China's rigorous state censorship. But Google doesn't have to be collaborating with oppressive governments to potentially influence your life and your choices. As Zuboff explained, surveillance capitalists have learned to tune, herd, and condition our behavior with subtle and subliminal cues, rewards, and punishments that shunt us toward their most profitable outcomes. In this way, Zuboff notes, our behavior is being intervened upon, touched, coaxed, modified, contaged, influenced in all of these ways that are designed to be undetectable to us. Zuboff argues that this behavioral modification, born out of excessive data collection and that personalization it facilitates, even robs us of our future tense, which is the essence of free will. In other words, do I even like Bagel Bites anymore, or am I merely a carb-hungry sheep being controlled by the man? But why are we so okay with Google owning the sum of our life experiences? Why are we cool with a business model that postures as free, while simultaneously making us pay by handing over our valuable data? Well, on one level, it's because we're not totally sure what exactly is happening, which is also true of me whenever I sit behind this microphone. As Zuboff explains, Google has learned to employ a range of rhetorical, political, and technological strategies to obfuscate these processes and their implications. Effectively, it hides its shady practices from consumers while heavily lobbying the government for the right to continue them. But there's more. According to Bruce Schneier, our continued reliance on Google, despite its creepiness, comes down to the fact that we overestimate the value of free. We consume more of something than we should when it's free. We pressure others to consume it. Free warps our normal sense of cost versus benefit, and people end up trading their personal data for less than it's worth. On the surface, it seems like we're getting a great deal with Google. But the truth of that matter is that we're handing the company some of our most sensitive information that's tremendously valuable to companies trying to advertise to us. Indeed, personal data is the fastest growing industry in America. Based on current trends, our data could be worth $197.7 billion by 2022, making it bigger than the nation's entire agricultural output. But as valuable as it is, we're, of course, not compensated for it. As journalist Rana Foruhar argues, when our data is what's being collected, we have a right to know how much it's worth, and then decide, as a society, if we should be receiving some of that value ourselves. And when you think about how many bagel bites your data could buy you, that argument becomes pretty persuasive. So is Google kind of evil? For sure. Whether they're using reams of data to manipulate your behavior via hyper-targeted ads, making conspiracy theories seem mainstream, or colluding with bad actors like digital loan sharks or oppressive governments, Google's power is overwhelming to contemplate. Meanwhile, their willingness to use that power for good is underwhelming. But what do you guys think? Are we being too harsh on the very company which lets us publish these videos to reach all our lovely fans? Or are we hitting on a fundamental truth? That for too long, we've been willing to sacrifice privacy for convenience. Let us know what you think in the comments. Big thanks to our patrons for all your support, and be sure to check out our podcast. Obliterate that subscribe button like Google did to your privacy, and don't forget to ring that bell. And as always, thanks for watching. Peace.